Hi, I'm Jonathan, and today on Hanging Out with the Guides, we have Brad Johnson. Brad, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Jonathan. Thank you for having me on.
So, Brad, uh, Brad is a reality whisperer. He performs what he calls illuminated and innovative coaching, counseling, and healing. He makes use of psychic ability, channeling, healing, spiritual teaching, dream interpretation, accessing the Akashic records, and more. He shows how we can form an intuitive relationship with the reflections of reality so that we can attract outcomes that serve our true aligned nature. So, Brad, tell me about who you are and what you believe your role is in this life. When you
Yeah,
leave
it's a
this
very
world, when you leave
yeah.
this world, what impact would you like to have left?
Well, the again, how it really just started with me was that I'm a writer, and I really wanted to just write a novel all about the extraterrestrial presence, and I wanted to make it kind of like a nonfiction science fiction. And through all of that research that I did online, I just started looking into psychics, intuitives. I started looking into people who have had contacts with other extraterrestrial races, and it was everything that I thought it wasn't. And it really was a very spiritual aspect to it. And I was just so fascinated by everything I was discovering through research. I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to put this book aside. I wanted to look into this a lot more. And it was through this looking into it that I really evolved a lot more spiritually. I got into channeling, I got into energy healing, I got into psychic development, meditation. And so this has just been an incredible journey for me. I never thought I would actually go down this road. So for the last 7 years, it has just been the understanding that everything is one and that one is everything. And so when I leave this life, I know that the whole world doesn't revolve around me. And so I'm just happy to contribute in regards to what basically brings me into the highest joy possible. That's helping people out through what I offer. That's being able to write. That's being able to create films, because I am starting to get into that genre right now. And I just want to express myself and create in the best way I can. And that really just represents being able to access what I have been given through a lot of these abilities that I've developed throughout the years, and just being able to help people along their paths, because I was there at a time as well, and I had wished for people to come along and really be able to assist me as well. And so I feel like I'm going back into that loop again and being able to help people there. So the time that when I decide to pass away from this plane, the world would keep running, the world would keep turning, and I'm just grateful for all the memories that I leave in regards to what best serves me in my natural degree.
That sounds awesome. Why extraterrestrials? How did that happen? I'm sure we'll go into that.
I've always had a fascination with them since I was a kid. I used to play the video games. I used to read the books. I used to watch the shows all about ETs, and I was always into that. I always felt that I was from like another planet, even since I was a little kid, because I would just look at humans as a little kid and just say, these humans are so strange. The way they fight over things, the way they behave, it's just so strange, right? I felt like I was from another world, and so I never really took it too much to heart. But I just know that this has always been a topic for me. I grew up watching Star Wars. I grew up watching Star Trek, and all the big sci-fi episodes, and I just got hooked on that. I said, this is it. I want to focus more on other life that exists. So it has always been a very recurring theme of my life since I was a little kid. And just being able to really understand that we have a gigantic universe here, and that there's more to us. And how could you not be fascinated by that? So I mean, to me, that's just been so incredible. When you look at the stars, you know that there's life on every single one of those stars. And so that has always just been a driving force and a fascination to me altogether.
It's very interesting. I relate a lot to that thinking. That was also something that drove me exploring extraterrestrials. That I when I wrote about humans, I wrote they in the past
Yep.
because I didn't relate to them. I was like, what are these
Yep.
creatures? What are they doing?
Yep.
So yeah, no, I totally relate to that. It's very interesting.
Mhm.
Um, so so obviously expanding on what you just said, how did you get to where you are today? Tell me some of the key parts
Yeah,
of your
well, again,
story.
a lot of the stuff was, again, after doing a lot of the research, I wanted to put things into practice, and I was basically just going through a failing marriage at the time as well too. there was a lot of black clouds that were happening, and I felt I was really just kind of putting all of this new paradigm understanding into motion. And so I left the marriage and went on my own, and just began to spend time in solitude with myself, and just really being able to understand what is it that I have been given. I've been able to go into channeling states. I've been able to go do psychic development. I've been able to look into energy healing, meditation. All of this has been just very, very interesting to me, and I'm now noticing that I could have these abilities. I'm seeing that they're coming together, and I wanted to know what am I here to do. And so I was able to receive a lot of assistance universally in regards to what people could refer to as a universal mind, and being able to connect with other intelligences, and felt like I was being mentored for about that year and a half in solitude, and just getting an understanding and saying, well, start helping people, right? Because as you evolve, others will start to evolve as well. And so I started developing services. First, I started off free, then I moved on to donation-based, and then it started to move on into fixed rates. But I've always just explored the entire facet of spirituality, metaphysics, and consciousness when it came to, again, psychic ability, Akashic records, healing, channeling, mediumship, etc. All of that has been fascinating to me. So I've really spent 7 years not even really going the conventional way. A lot of my stuff is very unconventional, but very effective. And I just wanted to actually say, okay, I enjoy the groundwork. I enjoy the foundations that people build, and I have a great deal of respect for that, because that's helping to pave the path about where I want to go. And so I was developing a lot of these new techniques. I was developing a lot of these new methods, from what was referred to as light circuitry, utilizing symbols to help people to heal. Moving now into what's known as abundance attunements, which is also working together with feelings exchange and feeling substitution. So there's been just a lot of incredible new ideas coming together, and just being able to help people from all over the world. And for the past 7 years, I've been helping thousands of people from all over the world, from over virtual means through Skype, doing conferences, doing seminars all across the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast. It's just been an incredible journey. It's not only that I'm helping these people, they're helping me, because now I'm seeing so much of myself that I realized, oh my goodness, this was here the whole time. There's this part of me that always felt like there was that absence of spirituality. And I was able to rediscover it. Again, not only just offering myself as a mentor, offering myself as a counselor, and offering myself as a facilitator, but also having those people come back to me and offering themselves to me and helping me as well too. So it was basically a two-way street. And even when I do sessions today, it's still that feeling as well, that the questions that people ask really help me, because it's a living mirror. We reflect back on us. So my whole goal and my whole approach is really just to, again, bring forward what I have learned, bring over what I have attained, and attempting to help people in the best way I can through a lot of intuitive development, a lot of psychic development, self-empowerment, and of course, looking more into the type of coaching and healing that I do. And of course, it's can be referred to illuminative coaching, of course, and that's just short for illuminating and innovative, and just attempting to bring a lot of these new higher concepts to people and helping them to really gain empowerment in their life and realize feelings are just relative things. They're programs. And so the more that we can transcend past the idea of feeling that we are burdened by certain forms of feelings on an absolute nature, realize that they're flexible, and realize that we're like in a supermarket where we can actually choose feelings and choose what we prefer, this is what's actually going to transform our life. So I'm simply being here as kind of that ambassador to let people know you can have the most remarkable life you've ever imagined. It's possible.
That's awesome. That's well put. I like the way you describe feelings as something that you can shop for, essentially, that you don't have to stick with the ones you've got.
That's right.
So before I go into the next set question, I'm sure you face people who wonder about the actual details of what you do, that they're just like, what is this? Because obviously you're doing something that's there are people who are familiar with it, and then it's like, okay, this is totally normal and everything. And then obviously there are the people who are not familiar with it, who are like, what's going on here? So what do you say to people like that when you get that?
Exactly, and I've attempted to be a lot more universal in what I offer as well too, because a lot of people say, "Oh my God, what the heck is light circuitry? What is that? What is this about you channeling an extraterrestrial consciousness? What's going on here?" It's like, this is so out of this world. It's crazy. I say, well, it is crazy. If you want to come into my domain, it's going to be crazy for you, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a bad thing, right? So I basically have had to really kind of universalize myself and make it a little bit more clear about what I do. And it's basically just being able to referencing people who are very common. We're looking at people like Abraham Hicks, who has really done a lot of great work. Being able to share this information, has felt that she's starting to get really mainstream. And I said, well, you know her, right? And it's very much similar to what she does. Oh, okay, I'm getting an idea with that, right? So it's being able to really universalize with people, just being able to form relationships. And I've had to come down a few notches myself because I just want to go so far up there. And if I'm going so far up there, I'm only going to have a minimal amount of people to actually work with, right? So it's basically me just being able to come down a little bit and just universalize the terms that I do, and just letting bringing it into communicating by their language, and getting an idea of saying, well, this is just an advanced type of healing. If you're familiar with Reiki, if you're familiar with alternative forms of healing, this is really just doing that. Now it's just with symbols. Oh, okay, great. How do those symbols work? Well, we work with your subconscious mind. If you guys are familiar with neuro-linguistic programming, very similar to that style, just again, utilizing symbols. Oh, okay, I get it. Sure, we'll do this, right? So it's as long as you're able to really speak their language, that I think is the key. But when I was first starting, and even in the last year or two, it's been challenging because I want to come up with these such grand concepts, and they're so powerful and they're so unique, yet you have to really kind of universalize itself, because if you can't form a relationship with what you're attempting to offer, you're not going to get that many people. So it's very just important just to universalize a lot of your terms.
Yeah. I like the way you're putting that. I relate a lot. Like in my own journey, I felt like at first that I couldn't communicate the ideas I was coming up with, because people just like, they had no idea what I was talking about. So and this was when I was young. I was like little. I was coming up with these ideas and no one understood what I was saying. So I realized that in a lot of ways my journey was learning to step into the other person's shoes for a while, and be able to talk in their language, communicate in their terms, communicate through their experiences. And then because they're already familiar with the terminology, I can convey things that otherwise I wouldn't be able to convey, because I'm communicating in a way that it's from their perspective rather than from my own. And that's what you're describing there. I like the way you put that. It's like, bridging the gap by speaking from their perspective rather than speaking from your own.
Yeah, and I think that's what you have to do. And especially if you want to really reach out to a lot of people, if this is something that you want to do with your life, this is what you want to do for a living, you really just have to come into the language. It is unfortunate that we have to go to that level. We would love to go so far off and do this and say, okay, here it is. I don't have to explain much. Here it is. Just do it and take a look. People are inquisitive. They want to know a lot about this, and they want to make sure it's for them. And so it's just being able for ourselves, being facilitators, being coaches, to being able to assist others and helping them to realize this is what we're offering, and here it is, me speaking your language. So again, that's a very, very important tactic that we need to have.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I just wanna note what you said before, because I really liked it, that you felt like you were being mentored in your solitude.
Yes.
It's such an interesting concept. I relate a lot to that. I never put it in those terms. That was perfect. That you could be alone and being mentored during that time.
Right.
Most people would think that's a contradiction in terms, but that completely describes it.
It's basically made me who I am today, was actually through it. I don't have a human mentor, so to speak. A lot of the mentoring I have done has been through universal connection, has been through channeling, has been able to connect with, again, higher dimensional consciousness. And so that is really what has mentored me. That's really helped me to think clear. And it's really just being able to, if people have great human mentors, that's fantastic. If you have people who has really mentored you very well and you felt like you've transformed so much, that's awesome. Just for my own particular experience, it's just been my own solitude. It's been the universe that has been my mentor. And that has really just shown through the work that I do that it works. And everybody really can do it that way. But the solitude was challenging because there was a lot of certain forms of feelings that I had to transcend, a lot of guilt that I had as well too, being able to leave the family and all that, and being able to pursue something that I just knew was so much my calling. There was no doubt about it. And like I said, 7 years ago, I never thought I'd be doing this kind of work. I was always into video marketing. I was into making movies. I was into writing. That was my stuff. And now I'm going to start doing that again, just more so with the stuff that I'm doing right now. I couldn't imagine a day not doing what I do now. So it's just being able to take all of those fun things that I enjoyed in the past and now bringing that in together, starting to make a TV show, starting to make new books, and again, continuing to do seminars and conferences around the world is really where I'm going. And so I enjoy every second of it.
That sounds awesome. How did you, just one more off the plan question.
Yeah.
What 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 led you to recognize what the source of the information was when you were in solitude, and what led you to conclude that it wasn't your own thoughts and to recognize what the actual sources were?
It was just truth. And that's basically, I think, the best way to put it. A lot of people want to really debate about what they're receiving because there's that logical mind that wants to say, okay, who is this? Who's sending this information? What type of person are they, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what the logic gets distracted with. And I think when you're in solitude, you're letting that logic be on its own and saying it doesn't really matter too much about what the logic says. You want to get more into feeling. And so the feeling was telling me this is pure truth. This is 100% truth. And it can only be my truth. What I say to myself works for me. It can't be something that I say to another person and think it's going to work for them. This is just basically where you have that full realization that this is truth that's coming together with yourself. You understand a lot of things because truth speaks so loudly to you. So the more that you can really just get used to trusting your own truth, the more that life becomes easier. Because again, everything that represents your heart is never going to betray you, right? It's your true nature. It's who you are. And so when you align to that and you feel the truth coming together and letting the ego in that sense just be on its own, you're developing an alliance with it, but you want to make sure that the ego is designed to do its job. And that's keeping you grounded in reality, and that's helping you to move forward in regards to how reality operates. That's great, and I love the ego for that. And it's being able to now know that when we're looking for truth, when we're looking for what's happening here in this now moment, that can only come together through our hearts. That can come together through feelings. And so feelings themselves are the core of our being. And so when we start playing with feelings, we're playing with the core of our being. If we're playing with anything else, then we're basically just playing the surface, right? So the more that we play together with feelings, the more we connect with our feelings and let ourselves say, this is a feeling I prefer, this is a feeling I don't prefer. If there's a feeling I don't prefer, then I can exchange that for a feeling that I do prefer. This is equivalent exchange, right? So being able to look at it in that way and seeing it that way and being able to adapt yourself into a state of truth is just the most beautiful thing ever. And that's the confirmation really that you only need. You don't need anything else.
That was very well put. I was wondering how you were going to answer that. I like your answer to that.
Funny thing is that I'm not really answering. I'm just speaking to answer in that way. It's kind of like, again, the mind for me is the universal mind, right? And this is why I refer to myself as the reality whisperer. A lot of the things that I say out of my words is, again, coming from my own truth, but it's also coming in a way where I'm not thinking about responding. It's just the flow is responding rather than the thought.
Right. Well, that's the ultimate, and that's what channeling really is.
It is. Yep. I channel 24/7. It's all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, you're just
whether it's with my contact that I communicate with Adronis or if it's me, nonetheless, it's always channeling. So I'm thinking of retiring thought completely.
I like that.
Got a way of speaking, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's a good way of thinking about it. to let go of the thinking. So obviously, on continuing the same train of thought here, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned on your journey, and who have been some of your greatest teachers?
We take ourselves too seriously, and that's one of the biggest things. And I think just it's all about the idea that you're immortal, you're eternal, you're forever, and what are you worried about? The whole idea is that, oh my goodness, I have to make so much money, good money, and I want to pass away. You're going to pass away. This body is temporary. This whole idea of being in this reality is temporary. This life is temporary. So the whole idea is you're here to have fun. And so again, it's good to be serious. It's good to really take certain things seriously, and that's fine. But the thing is, we take ourselves too much seriously. And the people that I think are really good mentors, I don't really cling to anybody in regards to that way. I think anybody has the ability to be a good mentor as long as they stay in their truth. That could be the Christ, that could be the Buddha, that could be Krishna, that could be anybody, that could be a person I see down the street, that could be a janitor I see in a school who sticks to their own truth. Those are, I feel, are really great mentors because they live in that particular presence. But really, it's just being able to know that really why we've come here is to be, in a way, undisturbed by reality. In that sense, going through a lot of the extremes, through the positive and through the negative, and then realizing that we've been through it all, and that again we understand the lucidity of feeling, and that through feeling being so relative, that we're now able to connect into the feelings that we prefer, and now we are basically standing on top of the summit of the mountain, just looking down at our creation and saying, hey, I know I'm only going to be here for a short amount of time. I appreciate everything that I've contributed to reality. And then people might say, well, Brad, what about my family? What about your family? Your family is your family. They're their own people. They're their own souls, right? It's not for you to feel that you have to be fully 100% responsible for them. You can only be responsible for you. There's only you in this universe. There's nobody else. So the whole idea is that you can offer support, you can offer assistance, you can always inspire, you can always educate, but they must make their own decisions. And for us to try and impose on their own particular forms of decision making is no more different than how we're interacting with these limited systems that are trying to tell us what to do, what to eat, what to say. So the whole idea here is go easy on yourself. Really look into the relativity pertaining to your feelings. Look into what you don't prefer. Forgive that aspect and reach a state of liberation to what you do prefer overall. And this is what I work with people to understand a lot greater. And there's been miracles that have come together just recently through the new healing system that I've developed called Abundance Attunements, and just being able to work together with people one-on-one. There's really been some miraculous transformations taking place within those half hours, within those hours. It's been an incredible ride, and I enjoy every second of it.
Mm. That sounds amazing. I hear a lot of my own experience and my own ideas and what you're saying. What you just mentioned, the idea of the forgiving yourself and setting a new intention for going forward, sounds very similar to the way I talk about it. That it's like we have our own internal GPS or our own relationship with ourselves, and that when we're wanting to move forward, that it's a matter of acknowledging old dynamics with ourselves, old destinations we've set, apologizing for those, allowing ourselves to forgive ourselves for those, and then actually set a new intention for how we'd like to treat ourselves going forward, for a new destination going forward. And I mean, obviously, universal truth is universal truth, and we're going to see it everywhere, worded differently, from different perspectives. It's interesting to see the way you're expressing it, in comparison to the way that I've expressed it myself.
Yep. And then that's, again, the universal truth truly is relative. We're always going to see different points of the picture. There could be people who are so similar to each other, but still have a uniqueness that's different. And so the whole idea is again, where we're going easy on ourselves, is realizing reality is by interpretation. And so that every single person that lives in reality will have their own perspective, their own point of view. It may not be something that you agree with, but that's okay, because again, they're just a reflection of you. This is basically what represents a catalyst. The catalyst of that particular person is helping you to see what you're like through their eyes. And so you're basically playing with different perspectives by each person talking to you and interacting with you. And this is what I've termed as the law of catalyst that exists within the law of attraction. And being able to get an understanding of saying, okay, I attract that nice old lady that said thank you to me helping her across the street. That's giving me a symbolic reference to my own kindness, right? Or I have a person who's very, very angry and upset with me, and that's just giving me the idea of something that I have not been able to see, to bring into light within myself. So again, we're playing with the dream state just in physical reality, and just getting an understanding of a lot of the metaphors, the symbologies that are coming together to helping us understand more about ourselves. It's us playing together with our subconscious. Everything that's beyond us is subconscious here in the life. And so we're playing with that and getting an idea about how we tick, about how we are, and just understanding the depths of our experiences.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, ultimately it's a lot like other people are talking about, that it's like a mirror. We look at the world and we're looking in the mirror and we're just seeing a reflection of ourselves. And it's interesting how, different animals, most animals, when they look in a mirror, they think it's another being. Yes. And then we think that, dolphins and elephants and we are special, and chimpanzees and so forth, that we can actually look in the mirror and recognize ourselves. And yet we look in the mirror of reality every day and don't recognize it's ourselves. That's so right. So it's interesting, it's interesting to look at it from that perspective, and then to recognize that, like you said, the old woman thanking you is actually a representation of your own kindness toward yourself. That it really is that, she's sort of, obviously she's living in her reality and you were a messenger of something for her, and you're living in your reality and she was a messenger of something for you. Right. And ultimately then it works very well that everyone is looking.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, because then you'll represent something to her in regards to say, oh my goodness, there is kindness in the world. Look, there's this person helping me across the street. I guess I do feel valued, right? So again, everything is going to be that two-way interaction together between yourself. And that's what makes reality so amazing. Nothing is ever one way. There is no such thing as a singular creation. We're always creating together because we require the environment to create. We require everything around us to create. So everything in that, again, works together in the cycle of life. And that's how we attract, that's how we create, that's how we manifest, and that's how we live. The entire world is responsible for every one of your creations. And so this is why we're always going to be co-creators as long as we live in this type of reality.
Right. I love the way you're putting everything. It's very, very interesting to hear
It's
your
like
expression.
the universe. It's great.
Yeah, it is. I agree.
I'm just saying it out loud. So
Right. No, I mean, I recognize that this is in some way me speaking, but
it
it's still
is.
really cool to hear. I mean, it's
Yep,
always
of
me speaking. I recognize that,
course.
and I talk to people, and I think, oh, how interesting.
Yep.
but but I still, but not everyone expresses, even if they're saying what I'm thinking, and even if that's actually how I expressed it to myself, not everyone's expressing as interesting a reflection.
Oh, exactly.
So
Yeah, yeah. My own philosophy is the science of the simple, right? So the reason I keep it so simple is because, again, it's speaking a universal language that everybody can understand, and a lot of it really just has to do with analogies and just working together with analogies, because that's even how spirit has to communicate with me and saying, okay, well, Brad, imagine yourself in a small pool, and here's all these people swimming around you, and here you are this, and here you are that, right? So it's giving me all of these examples to help me understand more about what I'm going through, and it says that's basically what we have to do, because we can't give you anything else a lot more solid technical, because you just won't understand, right? So you have to give something in relationship that can be very common to analogy.
right, that's how reality works. So it makes
Of
sense
course.
that
Yeah,
you
exactly.
would aim to work that way.
That's right.
Yeah. So continuing with this train of thought, what's the purpose of life? Why are we here?
Experience. It's really just understanding the depth of ourselves. We're just, again, when we look back in regards to the idea of the original one thought, it was that original one thought to begin becoming many thoughts and just saying, go out and create and bring everything back to me, right? So it's basically that we are existing within an experiential framework where there is expansion and contraction. And so as we expand, we understand more of the universe. We contract because we're attempting to resolve certain issues that we're still holding on to, so that when we expand again, it becomes even larger, right? And then we contract again, and we go even deeper into ourselves, and then we expand again, and we go even deeper. And that's it. The entire reason we're on this planet is to explore experience, is to understand the depths of ourselves and seeing exactly what kind of people can I meet, what kind of people can really enrich me, or what people do I feel are challenging for me, and being able to look at places, persons, events, or things, and just getting an understanding of our reality. We're starting to understand the natural course through our own perspective about what is right and what is wrong. We already know exactly how to live, and so what we're doing is we're going through contraction to go through those depths that are in disharmony together to how we naturally live. And so we work to correct those. And then as we expand again, now the new world starts to develop itself even further. That's it. That's all why we're here. People do have missions, they do have purposes, but those are self-appointed. And that's basically your own particular forms of labeling that you go into contraction to get an understanding of saying, well, here's my goal, but what do I need to do to tweak that a little bit more so that it can become even better? Oh, here's what I do. Okay, great. Expand. Whew, right? So that's giving us the same idea. It's just that we're being the lungs of reality. We're understanding about contraction and expansion, because that's helping us to reach levels of depth. So even when you're going very, very deep within, you're going into a very deep inner expansion. And then, of course, you expand, which again is a great outer contraction. So again, all we're doing here is playing with the depth of experience here. That's why we're here. And then may say, well, Brad, you have like some sort of ultimate goal for us to be yourself. That's it. To understand that you can look upon the valley that's below while you're on top of the mountain and saying, wow, that's a part of me. All of that's a part of me. Doesn't matter how much money I have in my bank account. Doesn't matter the fancy car I have. Doesn't matter the fancy house I have. Doesn't matter if I have the most beautiful wife or beautiful husband in the world or the most beautiful kids in the world. What matters is I can look at reality and saying, wow, this is all a part of me. It's just you exploring yourself. It is you that is the creator. It is the creator that is you. And so you're just coming back through your universe to understand the contraction and expansion of depth that understands your experience.
Like breathing in and out, like our hearts beating, like a cyclical revolution of planets around the sun and everything else. The world is just a series of cycles of expansions and contractions.
That's right.
Yeah, it's reflected
It's
everywhere.
being best friends with paradox, and that's the whole idea.
It's you know how some conversations seem like that everything, once you're aware that everything is a reflection of you and that you're just looking at yourself outside yourself and it's all like you communicating with yourself. Once you're aware of that, then it becomes increasingly obvious. But then there are those conversations that are sort of self-referential, and it's like everything that they're saying, like, it's so obvious that you can't, there's no way you could tune it out. Like, obviously, very often we can be not recognizing the relevance. And then there are the conversations where it's so obvious immediately and we're just there in it, and it's like, this person is speaking my thoughts, even if they have no idea what your thoughts are. And, you know, if you like consciously, like they don't realize what they're doing. This is a very cool self-referential conversation.
And that's the idea, because you're not thinking about it, right? So when you don't think about it to another person, it's amazing how you, in that sense, speak a lot of their thoughts. Because what you're doing is you're being completely empty inside. So basically the whole idea is that that flow can now come together, and it's a streaming river. And again, this is why I say to everybody, stop thinking. You know, don't worry too much about thinking. Thinking can help in certain ways to helping you make choice and direction. But the whole idea really is that really when you get into the flow, when you're in the essence of the moment, let the feeling come together. So there's basically what's known as thought flow rather than thought form. So it's being able to let flow, like a river, come together through you and just be relative in that approach. If you have thoughts, let the thoughts be visitors. Let them say that they're coming in and they're coming out, right? So the whole idea is never hold on to one particular type of thought, because that's what limits your depth perspective pertaining to contraction and expansion. So the more that you just let yourself time to, you know, sometimes you have to heal and you need to bring yourself into balance as you explore yourself from within. And now you're able to radiate that energy from without, and you're noticing that your reality is expanding. And you're doing all that through feeling. You're not doing that through thought. So the whole key here is play with the feelings more than the idea of thoughts. Thoughts are, again, just the idea that they are the moths to the flame. So the flame itself really is the feeling. And the thoughts themselves propagate based upon the relationship they have with that feeling. So the whole idea is really that feeling is in charge. So the more that you start to play together with the core of your feelings, the more that you know that, oh my goodness, this is me playing with my whole being. Absolutely. Now you have the ability to pick and choose, right? What feelings do you prefer over what feelings you don't prefer? And so again, that's the whole idea, is just working together and just being fluid and being like a crystal and just letting yourself as a vessel communicate. And you'll be amazed about how much telepathic experience you have. Talking to other people. I get that all the time with people. Like, oh, I'm saying something to a person. Oh my God, but I was just thinking that. I said, yeah, because I'm not thinking about what you're thinking about. I'm not thinking about what I'm thinking about. So I'm just being the vessel here. And that's where synchronicity aligns and we have telepathic experiences.
Yeah, it happens all the time with me also. It's always interesting. It's just interesting to have it on the other end.
Yeah,
you know?
it happens,
like
when you're empty. Yeah, exactly. It's when you're empty, that's when it happens the most. Because the whole idea is a person can be very, very emotional, very high in feeling, and you're just an empty vessel. And so you're just basically this pure reflection of their thoughts, because you're not thinking, you're not feeling, you're just being, and that's it. So it's really that beingness is one of the ultimate goals for us to be.
Before I go on to the next question, what led you to conclude that it's, when you say extraterrestrial, I feel like that might need further clarification, because I know you mentioned that it's like, that it's, I don't remember exactly what you said, other dimensional or like spiritual or however you worded it, but ultimately I think
anything that's beyond our conventional understanding of life, anything that really represents the idea that something that may be beyond Earth. It could be dimensional in nature. Yeah, it could be coming from different dimensions. It could be, again, coming from different planets. It could be coming from different realms. It could be coming from different domains. But basically, when we're looking at the idea of extraterrestrial, we're looking at terrestrialism through our planet and understand what we may understand as common life, and then being able to go to that extended level and being able to see that there are other beings beyond the idea of our common terrestrial plane. So that's basically my reference to the idea of extraterrestrial or star beings, or anything that would represent a type of connection for us to welcome in more that is an extension of ourselves coming into our life.
So considering everything as a reflection of us, and like just building on what you're saying right now, wouldn't we say then that the extraterrestrial beings that you're referring to, an extraterrestrial source of this information for you that you're channeling, that it's really ultimately higher parts of yourself that are being channeled, because ultimately everything is a reflection of you anyway?
That's right. You got it. And that's the whole key as well too, because at times what happens is that our minds, well, they work like a ring of a tree, right? So if we have our own inner circle relationship and we notice that nothing within our inner circle is allowing us to become enlightened, because it's all about drama, right? And so we move into outer circles that help us to connect in regards to some type of origin that will help us to really understand more about ourselves. And sometimes that goes into extraterrestrial planes. So that was my case, is that in my inner circle, there was nobody that really served me too much in regards to the idea of the mentorship that I was looking for. And so I had to go into the outer circles, and the outer circles came from the celestial roots. It came from, you know, the extraterrestrial realms. And so that's basically what came together for me and helped me out in that way. And it's even been the idea of past extraterrestrial realms. It's just being able to work together with the pure universal mind on all levels of being. And that's really how it has developed for me. And again, there's so many amazing people who I've worked with who have had incredible encounters and incredible experiences. And certain things like this, in similarity, have happened to them. And they're just afraid to talk about it, because if I talked about it to anybody, oh my God, they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to want to lock me up. And I said, you know, it's probably not that way that much anymore. But back in the times of 2008, 2009, it was. And so there's even people I've talked to who are doing it for 20, 30, 40 years and saying, oh my God, but if you start talking like this 40 years ago, they would have called people in white coats and taken you away, right? But now it's just that we're in a very lenient time. And it's not so uncommon for people to say, oh yeah, I've had an extraterrestrial encounter. I've had ships I've seen in the sky. I've had all of these encounters that have happened. I've gone into dream state. I've seen myself levitating out of bed. I've seen myself come out of my body. I've explored areas of the universe. Hey, that's great, man. Let's go for coffee, right? So that's it. To me, that's a general conversation. It's like, Brad, and then this is my favorite thing as well, too. I get this very common. Brad, you're going to think I'm crazy on this. I'm like, try me. You know, I've heard it all, man. I've heard it all. So if you think this is going to be very, very crazy, I said, man, you join the list, right? Because I've heard a lot of amazing things. To me, nothing really is crazy. And it's okay if people say, you know, Brad, you're crazy. Hey, that's great, because it's fun where I live in crazy land. So come join me. Right. So that's basically it. It's just that the whole idea is it's okay to be crazy in that way. If you notice that you're just expanding yourself and going into great depth, that can be defined as crazy. If you're contracting yourself and going into great depth, that's feeling crazy, because you're ready to go deeper than the idea than what the surface is attempting to tell you. So I welcome in the craziness for sure.
You're speaking my thoughts. So
there you go, man.
I relate a lot. Yeah. Definitely. If whenever anyone says to me, whenever anyone says the same thing, if they say, you're going to think I'm crazy, and I'm like, go ahead and share. There's no way, there's nothing you could share with me that's going to make me think you're crazy. I've like you said, I've experienced it all, and I've seen it all. And if you present some other interesting aspect of something that I've explored, then that's just going to be interesting. So yeah, totally. That's it's very interesting hearing these thoughts from someone else, because I've thought them. I agree with, I resonate with, I should say, the other people not being able to find the teachers here, and so like going inward and then finding the teachers sort of beyond here.
Oh, yeah.
That's
absolutely.
That was what I did it as well. Very interesting.
There'll be people who will just go into immediate regression, and they'll start going back into past lives, and they'll start looking into teachers who were part of those past lives. And they say that, you know, I'll just go into an altered state of consciousness, and I'll drift off, and I'll go into my teacher there. He is existing in 12th century China, and he's basically instructing me that way. So anytime I need mentorship, I'll regress, I'll go back, and I'll talk to my 12th century teacher in China. Great. That's awesome, man. Because as long as that's helping you, that's it. You know, the whole idea, again, time is relative, event is relative. So everything that we are able to access is here and now. So if you're going off planet and you're talking to another being from another planet, and that is a great mentor for you, fantastic. I applaud that, and I encourage that. You know, if it's being able to talk to a person who's here in this life, and that you're going off to them and they're giving you great information, and it's helping you to understand your own unique truth, fantastic. You have to go into yourself and be your own mentor, fantastic. Whatever represents the idea of the humility of your own unique truth is the key.
Right. I totally agree. So expanding on this, obviously, thinking from this meta perspective, tell me about God. Who or what is God, and what is our relation to such a source or being?
It's you. That's it. You're the only one in this universe, right? So again, you are God consciousness. This is basically where you are becoming a sovereign, commanding your reality, because this is basically at everything that you see around you, everything that you hear, smell, taste, touch, and hear, everything is a part of you. And so there's nothing that's separate. So the only God that you've been looking for is yourself. It's just you looking at yourself on the different layers of veils. There is no other external force that is guiding your life. It's not possible. There's only you here. You know, you are the essence of God yourself. And so that's basically what spirit is. And so what we are doing is helping us to understand more about how we can be God and goddess to our reality. And understanding that as we are able to command our reality and actually say, this is all my creation. We're commanding ourselves every single moment that we exist. We're getting up in the morning, that takes commands. We are getting into our front room and turning on our lights, that requires a command. We're getting into our car and turning it on and driving, that's a command, right? So if we're commanding all of those things, is that possible that we can extend those commands and make the reality that we prefer? Yes. because that's all we're doing is commanding reality and just seeing it in our minds and saying, okay, I'm going to go off to the Bahamas. I'm just doing it. There's no question in my mind. So when you have such that certainty, bam, you manifest a ticket. You go up into a travel agent, you grab the ticket, you're off to the Bahamas in 2 weeks, right? That's the whole idea. You command that reality because there's nothing that is creating any particular type of conflict within your mind, that is what you are doing. So when you are commanding your reality, that is the whole key, rather than asking for things, rather than wishing for things. It's always good to do that because it's fun at the Aladdin and the genie moment. That's great. But the whole idea is that you're the genie yourself. You don't have to be Aladdin, right? So the whole idea is that as a genie, you have the capability to grant everything into your reality by commanding it. So look at yourself as the genie rather than the idea of Aladdin rubbing the lamp.
That's an interesting twist for most people, I've found, because ultimately there's this sort of gradual progression throughout life where people are thinking of themselves as sort of the creation looking up to God, and then eventually we start to recognize, as we recognize that everything's a reflection of us, that we're actually God looking to our creation, not our creation looking to God. And so we no longer pray to a God. We now can actually just let our creation know what we'd like of it.
Yes, and it's the illusion that, again, human beings are having a spiritual experience, when in fact it's spiritual beings having a human experience, right? So the illusion is the idea of humans to spirit when it is spirit to humans. So it's, again, if anybody wants to feel that, I'm connecting myself to God, good, go for it, because all that's telling me is that they're connecting to higher aspects of themselves, right? And if they feel that they want to see God as outside of themselves, they're welcome to. Reality is by interpretation. But really all you're doing is just connecting to aspects of yourself. There is no one else here in your universe but you. That's simply there it is. Everybody else is just different bubbles, and they're all just clustering together, and we're interacting with each other. It's like those Vesica Pisces. This is kind of cool because this is going to be like the big symbol I'm going to use when I do my TV show. It's like, oh, hey guys, start going into a show and saying, hey, there's a big symbol, right? But that's the truth. It's just looking at the idea of the Vesica Pisces symbol and saying we're just connecting together in bubbles of consciousness with each other and just co-creating, because we're all gods in our own universes coming together and communicating with each other. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's, in a lot of ways, the most challenging concept for people, that there is only them. That to be able to communicate, there's only you. If you're experiencing it, it came from you.
Yes,
but that person's to blame, and that person's responsible. And what about if someone does this? Mm-hmm. Isn't that person? Yes. And no, it's all you. It all comes from you.
Yep, and that's it. Because then people get so confused about that and saying, well, this person did this to me. And so, okay, well, that person feels like they did something to you. You've accepted it all. You accepted all of those particular aspects of what has been taking place. You've accepted this person into your life. You accepted the challenges coming together. And say, well, Brad, I'm a very loving person. I'm just full of love, and I can't imagine retracting anything bad. Your conscious mind isn't at play here. You're working with your subconscious. The only thing that's conscious here is your own perspective of yourself. And so everything that's subconscious is coming together. And so you really don't know what's going to come down the pipe. You have breadcrumbs here and there, but you're playing with a subconscious mind. And so it's not selling the idea that if you have rainbows and whiskers on kittens, all of a sudden everything's going to be great and shiny and you're riding on unicorns and everything's great. It's not going to work that way. That's giving you the idea to move yourself into that level, to be unperturbed, to be completely undisturbed in reality and be in beingness. So no matter, even if the most volatile person comes up to you and starts screaming at you and spitting in your face and wanting to slap you across the face, you're still in that state of undisturbedness, right? And that's basically the whole idea, because you're more than your physical body. Your physical body is more. There's more to you besides this particular shell that we're occupying. And so that you can never die. You can know that you always will just transform, and saying it doesn't matter what a person does to me, because now I've attained my feelings into a state of humility. And now I'm just looking at my creation across the world. It could be the most violent person ever, and then blessings to them, right? They're going to, they know not what they do. Right? And again, it's going back to the Jesus Christ quote, right? Forgive them, for they know not what they do. And that's it. And I'm attempting to live more in that particular style. I've basically categorized it to the idea of 4 stages to human spiritual evolution. First one represents the idea of the survivors. They're in the pit. So everything is want, have, I want to have this, I want to have this, because they feel that they are incapable of getting it. And they're just basically enslaved to the idea of the illusion. Second would represent the idea of the questioners. They are the ones that are coming out of the pit, and now they're walking in the valley. And so the valley folk are basically just questioning their reality. Okay, what is this about? Okay, everything's now. Okay, quantum universe, etc. And they're asking all these particular questions to basically reprogram themselves. Then we go into the third stage, which represents the climbers or the explorers or those who seek self-improvement. And so they're here to take action. They're starting to climb that mountain. They're dedicated to themselves. They're working in regards to very strong states of empowerment, and they are working together in betterment of themselves. Then fourthly, we have the summit folk, and those are the people that are standing on top of the mountain or sitting on top of the mountain, and they're completely still. They don't have a care in the world. They just don't care about anything. They're very loving, but they understand that this is all just part of an illusion, and it's going by and it's driving by and just saying, I'm going to let the world be the world and I'm not going to care about it. They are I amness. They are basically just letting themselves completely communicate as a universal mind. They are completely symbiote to the idea of what universal creation is, and so that they are unperturbed or undisturbed through everything that exists within reality, and that they are just simply in a state of beingness. And so those are the beers in that particular way. So I look at it in these four particular stages of evolution, and I've met everybody from all four stages, and incredible people nonetheless, regardless if you're in the pit or if you're at the top of the summit. You're still an incredible being, and you always will be, and you're always going to be advancing. Every one of us is eventually going to get to the summit, every single one of us. It may not be in this lifetime, may not be the next, but it will come together. Just for people to learning how to evolve themselves and realizing the transcendence past the allure of illusion.
I'm inclined to add, and then see how you respond to this, that that rather than simply getting to the place of beingness, that the next step is in some way, not that there's another stage in your four groups, but that when you're at that stage of beingness and the person is able to slap you and then you don't respond, you don't react rather in any kind of emotional way or anything, that it doesn't affect you, then no one slaps you anymore. Because ultimately it doesn't, you don't bring more to yourself that didn't elicit any kind of reaction in you.
Yeah, so, because you're in such a natural state of peace. And basically what they're showing people is it's saying that that's just how undisturbed you are. You know, I've never met anybody who's on a summit who's basically poofy and got slapped across the face. But it's giving you the idea about how you're undisturbed. And it's basically looking at the idea that life, in that sense, may try to slap you across the face at times, right? And you're still completely undisturbed about it, no matter what happens in your world. You could lose all of your bank account money, you know, in your bank account tomorrow. You wouldn't be affected by it, right? Everything is just basically saying that it doesn't matter. You know, I amness and I am beingness. And so life will attempt to do that. But it's basically just giving you the idea that as you are completely in that state, life truly forms a humility around you in that sense. And so that you basically bathe together in that humility. And even if there were certain extremes like that, you would not be disturbed by it because you are in that alignment together. And so the whole idea is you may get curveballs. You may get curveballs while you're climbing the mountain and all that stuff like that. But again, if you move into a state of undisturbedness and being able to move into that particular type of alignment, those curveballs will just start to pass you right by. And now you're able to climb that mountain and reach the summit. So again, you become the humility that you are.
I like that. I like the way that you're expanding on that there. The idea that these things are subconscious, what would you say to the idea that we can make them conscious? Because I'm of the belief that we can make those things that are bringing our reality to us that we might not be aware of, and that's why we get things in our lives. We're like, where did this come from? How could I be getting this? That we can actually make those parts of us conscious, and then we can actually address that, redirect that, and get different things consciously.
Well, that's why I'm a reality whisperer, right? So being able to work together with communicating with reality. And the more that you just understand the mechanics about how everything flows, you understand the subconscious. Again, it's someone who is, in that sense, an adept dream interpreter who is able to understand so much of their dreams. Now they're just bringing that into their own physical reality. Now they're understanding the mechanisms about how everything is attracted. And that's basically looking at the idea of subconscious in clusters, because subconscious, again, is just something we refer to as something we haven't quite understood in relationship. So as you start to develop a relationship with it, now the subconscious and the conscious just become consciousness. And so now we're looking at the idea of consciousness because we're able to flow through the mechanisms about what reality is sending our way, and looking at the clustering pertaining to the attractions that we bring into ourselves in relationship to catalyst. And now we don't have a subconscious. We basically just have consciousness. And now we are conscious aware. in regards to our reality in many different forms. And it will always continue to improve. It'll always start to get better. It'll always start to bring in new themes. But again, as long as you understand the mechanisms about how everything flows, about how causality works, about how the universe flows together in regards to you being the creator and filtering everything through you, as you understand that, there is no subconscious. There's only consciousness.
It's interesting to ask the questions for you to clarify the terms and expand the terms in the context of the way I think of them, because I imagine that's doing that for other people also who are watching this and are going to be watching this, that you know, that like when you're talking about extraterrestrial and then you expand that and like it's like our higher selves, God, it's actually only us. There's only us. Like, and then you know, subconscious. Our subconscious is affecting our lives, and no, it all can become conscious, and then it's just consciousness. So it's, you know, like redefining all the terms.
That's it, because you want to make sure you put all the blocks together, right? And then you see how they all fit together, right? So that's the whole idea, is giving the interpretation. Yeah, there's extraterrestrial beings. Yeah, there's angelic beings. Yeah, there's other different beings in different dimensions, etc. But they're all just different versions of you. They're just different extensions of your own circles that represent yourself. And so it's all coming back together. You are God. You are the only one here. And so you're interacting with all those beings, again, as different bubbles, different spheres of consciousness. And then when we look together at the whole, it's all just us as well, too. Everybody else. Just that cluster of the multiverse, that cluster of everything that is just us. We're just one big whole, from the microcosm to the macrocosm.
Right. Just like there are other people out there, that there are other beings beyond people, but it's still all us. That to be able to put all that together like that.
You know, we came to Earth to really be challenged. We really wanted to say, okay, I want a really good game here. I want a game that I'll be challenged so much where I feel like I'm going to be separated from everybody, that we're going to dive so much into feelings and feeling that this is part of our reality and that we're cut off from everything. We're cut off from source. That's the video game that we've been playing throughout Earth. And this is why Earth is such a very, very fun place to be, because it's never boring. It's looking in the idea that there's so many challenges and there's so many conflicts and there's so much separation and all that stuff like that. And just everybody is just basically feeling that this world is nuts. This world is crazy. You look back at it from spirit and saying, that's one of the most funnest games I've ever played my entire life. Right? And that's where people just keep coming back, because they'll say, oh my goodness, it's so crazy, I never want to be here again. They come back again, you know, because it's all part of just being able to play that game. Say, hey, okay, I had a really great experience in that. Now I want to live in Australia and I want to be a supermodel, you know, whatever it is, right? And I want to have 5 children. And that's coming back together and say, okay, sure, here you go. Bam, synchronicity aligns, you come back into the body and you do it all over again. And that's the whole idea. It's just a fun video game. You keep pumping quarters into it because you want to play it again and again and again. And people ask, well, why do we come here? So why do you play a video game? For the experience, right? And that's the whole idea, right? So the more that you start to experience yourself, transcend the idea of these illusions, and make this harmonized, now the earth works together with you. Now you culminate together with everybody else that wants to make it harmonized as well. And now the earth changes. It's changing every single moment that we exist.
When you say command, when you say like as God command the world to be a certain way, elaborate on that. Give me an example of command.
Yeah, it's not demanding, and that's the important thing. It's not the idea of feeling that you're just hopeful or that you're wishing or that you're demanding in that way. Again, it's like looking at how we would turn on a light switch. We're not yelling at the light switch, hey, turn on, what's the matter with you, right? No, we just flick it on, right? And that's commanding our reality. It's basically giving the intention of action. And so that is to command, right? So we're giving the intention to action to bring forward everything in our reality. That's utilizing our vision. That's utilizing visualization. That's being able to drive around in a very full parking lot and saying, I already know there's a parking space for me. I'm commanding that parking space to be. You drive around and 30 seconds later, bam, there's a parking spot. And not only is there a parking spot, it's a parking spot that exactly the one you wanted, right? So that's giving you the idea that if you just keep asking, oh, can I get a parking spot, universe, can you help me out here? You may just be driving around a lot longer. But when you command that and saying, I see it, it's happening now, it's coming together, you shift. And now that parking spot comes together, right? That's the whole idea. You're not being mean to anybody. You're not saying that you're going over the world berserk. But what you're doing is you're just being able to command your reality, because that's what your reality is meant to do. It's meant to serve you. So every single atom that's here right now responds to your thought, responds to your feeling, responds to your intention. So allow your intentions of command to come together, and this is how reality flows a lot more naturally. This is what I'm teaching in Law of Attraction Unleashed through the new home study course that I've created on my website. So it's giving people the idea to evolve past the idea of asking and wishing And again, Aladdin the genie and becoming the genie itself and being able to command your reality. And there's been some really amazing results that people have adopted this new version of law of attraction.
I've seen the same kinds of results with my own clients with the same idea. I asked you about command because I distinguish between control, which you're describing as demand, and so obviously there are a lot of people who think of, if you're in control of your reality, you're supposed to be controlling your reality. You're supposed to be like forcefully controlling it, like demanding of it. Like you said, like if you're yelling at the light switch, like that would be their equivalent of being in control of their reality. But it never needs, we don't need to be exerting so much effort to make things happen. And ultimately that doesn't, if it wouldn't get results with another person, it's not going to get results with reality. So if you're yelling at the person, they're going to rebel, they're going to resist. If you're asking them, but in a way that you don't believe you're going to get the result, they're probably not going to do it. If you ask them in a way that you're sort of saying, I'd really like this from you, I really appreciate this, that's sort of it's like this soft way of like, I know that this is how it's going to play out. I'm going to be really kind about it because I know that you're going to want to accommodate me. And so, because we have that kind of relationship. So this is what I'd like. I'm going to be really appreciative. This is how I see it. I think you could do this. Not only I think you could do this, I know you can do this. So that would be great. I'm ready.
Yeah, absolutely. The more that you can throw away control, the better off you are. You do not need to live in this world with control at all. Control is actually the mess that's got us here in the first place, right? So it's all based upon the idea that societal systems are based on control, or based on rules, or based on laws, and that many of us who are just natural want to surpass those laws, want to surpass those rules. And so I look in the idea when I dissect control, I said it's a con created by a troll, right? Because that's all it is, right? So the more that you can throw away control, and I say when you're attempting to master yourself, you are directing your energies, you are managing your energies. You're not controlling and demanding everything and saying, hey, I can't control my body. You're not controlling your body in the first place. You're managing together with the idea of the flow. You're aligning to the direction of where the flow of action wants to take you. So nothing in reality itself can be controlled. And anybody that attempts to control it will fall apart. And that's what we're seeing in the world right now. So the whole idea here is the more that you can transcend the idea of control and demand and live into the idea of commanding, which is just the idea of the action, of the intention that you're bringing forward. That's how reality gets very sweet. That's how reality starts to move together in your favor based upon the feelings that you prefer rather than the ones you don't.
Right, when you give attention to what you want and you really see it that way, you feel it that way, you experience it that way already, then the world is going to be like, yeah, I'll support that. That's what you want from me. This is my job. I would love to support you in that.
You got it.
So obviously we basically already talked about this, but I'd love for you to answer this anyway. How does the universe work? What are the most fundamental rules or laws by which everything in the world operates?
Well, I've looked at it into the idea that there are basically 9 universal laws, and the 3 of them are basically just processing laws. But if we're looking at the 6 laws that we're attempting to bring forward to ourselves, we have the idea of the law of attraction. We have the idea within the law of attraction that represents the law of catalyst. We have the law of free will. We have the law of karma. We have the law of equivalent exchange. We have the law of love, and we have the law of light. So again, all 6 of these particular laws are elaborated a bit more in my course. Then, of course, there's the 3 other universal processing laws, which represents the idea of law of cause and effect, law of causality, which can be referred to as time, and law of property, which represents the idea of space. So those are basically the processing laws. Those are working together with grids. Those are helping us to make our reality dimensionally function. So the whole idea here is that when we can harmonize the 6 laws, so when we look into the idea that, again, these particular 6 universal laws come together with the 2 understandings. Now, these are understandings, they're not laws. The law, one understanding, represents the idea that one is all is one. The second understanding is that now is forever, forever is now. Those are basically what you would refer to as absolutes. They can never be changed because they're not even laws. They're just understandings. So when we're looking into the idea of the 6 universal laws, so firstly, if we're looking at the idea of the law of free will, what is it to have free will? It's to have confusion. It's to basically have choice based on being confused. So the whole idea is that free will is the ability to make choice because we're confused. So the whole idea is that you do have the ability to transcend the idea of free will because you're being guided through naturalness. And naturalness is always following the heart. The heart is now your mind. Feeling is now your mind that serves. And now you're directing yourself in that way, and that you're moving more so in the idea of direction rather than choice. Second idea in regards to the idea of the law of karma. And that karma itself is just that which we feel we personally conflict ourselves with, those that remain unresolved in that particular way. Karma is very relative. It really has a bad rep in the feeling that people feel, oh my God, I got this karma now, and they try to assign it to fate or to the idea of destiny and that it's irreversible. No, that karma doesn't work that way. Nothing in your reality is irreversible, or in the feeling that it's not, in that sense, incapable of being changed. Again, the only two particular fundamentals pertaining to that is that now is forever and all is one. So now, as you understand that that particular karma itself is just, again, a feeling you don't prefer. And so now you're transforming it into a feeling you do prefer. You're bringing positive karma over negative karma. Bam, karma is balanced, right? Then we have, of course, the idea of the law of attraction, right? And again, so bringing in what we are basically seeing together that we value through ourselves, or what we do not value through ourselves. So all of that magnetics is coming together. Law of catalyst within the law of attraction is giving us personalized relationships to the elements within our particular reality. Law of equivalent exchange. Everything comes at a price. You cannot get something from nothing. In order for one to attain something, something of equal value must be given in return. So that's giving you the idea that in order for you to have this old feeling here to be completely dissolved, you need to give up that feeling so that a new feeling can be brought together in its place. That's equivalent exchange. We have law of love, which represents the idea of your own nature of value, your ability to create, your nature of allowance, your nature of appreciation, being able to become a creator. The law of light, which is representing knowledge and tactfulness, being able to understand the stratagems and tactfulness of your own direction to move yourself into a reality that you prefer based upon your own imprint that is favorable to you to evolve. So these are basically the idea of the 6 universal laws. So when we start to transcend those ideas and move into harmony with all 6 universal laws, we are basically going into I am presence. We're moving into the idea of complete beingness. So the universe is basically just a giant holographic form of mirrors. And it's being able to reflect all of these particular perspectives about ourselves. And sometimes we'll get caught up in 1 or 2 mirror reflections that don't look good. And we spend so much time on those 1 or 2 reflections, we're forgetting everything else that's here. And so the universe is just basically this multi-billion-year holograph that is attempting to help us understand that through contraction and expansion, we're understanding the depths themselves. So this is basically an in-depth sphere that is producing more mirrors as we go deeper and deeper. And it is infinitum. It is paradox. And the more that we continue to work together within the microcosm, the contraction, and the macrocosm, the expansion, the depth itself continues to grow and grow, and the mirrors start to become more and more apparent. And so we're contained in this sphere of paradox to help us understand the depth of ourselves, and that's the nature of the universal archetype.
It's the endless depth of ourselves.
That's it. Yep, absolutely. Never ends.
Yep. And it's all happening now.
That's right. Everything now. That's how the universe works. That's dimensions.
Mm-hmm. What do you believe is the most important thing for every person to know? If you could tell every human being on the planet one thing, what would it be?
Relax. That's probably the biggest thing I would say, is relax yourself and really understand that everything that we've just talked about today is giving you the indication that this world is a game and that your life is a game and that you're just helping yourself to understand a fun little game to helping you understand the depths of consciousness in this particular way. So relax yourself, take a deep breath, and just remember that fun is important. Fun is just as important as taking things seriously. Yes, it's good to take things seriously, but yes, it's also important to have fun. You're here to have serious fun, or have entertaining fun seriousness in that way. So really, really just remember that as much as you take yourself seriously, let that be balanced between fun and seriousness altogether. So the more that you can relax and reflect on everything that we've shared here today and understand that I can't die, I'm infinite. I am the godness that I truly am. I am presence. And that, why is it that I'm constantly battling myself to survive? Because I'm caught up in the illusion. And so the whole idea that you can relax yourself and go into yourself and go inwards and go into depth, you'll understand more about your own matrix. You'll understand everything about how you're becoming a reality whisperer itself, because now you're looking into how reality communicates with you. It's a life form. It's an organism. It's something that represents consciousness just as ourselves. So it can communicate with you if you're willing to do that. But again, you have to take your guidance from yourself. You have to make sure you take that cue. So the more that you can relax yourself, because relaxation is the key to the language that reality speaks. It doesn't speak to you when you're stressed the heck out, right? So looking into the idea of you actually being able to relax yourself, go inwards to yourself, reach a state of humility, and the reality around you will be a great conversationalist.
I totally agree. That was That's the message that if I could go back in time and tell my past self something, one thing probably, that would probably be the most important thing for me to say to myself, to
But you know what?
relax.
It's grateful that your past self was like that, because now you've become the person you are right now, right? And so it's also looking at the idea that we don't have regrets. That, you know, everything, I could have gone through the most horrible thing. I could have been a soldier in Vietnam, etc., and gone through a horrible, hellish experience. And that is responsible for me becoming who I am right now. So I thank all those times of turmoil. I thank all those tragedies. I thank all those trials and tribulations, because it's helped me become who I am right now. So thank you so much for that, old tomorrow. I really appreciate it. So now I'm here where I am. Thank you for that. That's the whole idea, is always being able to understand it. Even the extremes in your life are the greatest blessings you can ask for, because that's the formula for us to becoming who we are. You have to shatter yourself and rebuild yourself up one piece at a time to understand what you have, in that sense, moved past and no longer having to repeat again. So we all have to blow ourselves up. You know, that's a requirement, right? So when we shatter ourselves down to the ground, or just a bunch of pieces, we look into the importance of every piece that make us back to what we are as a strong structure.
And that would be the next thing that I would have added to that, which is that obviously my past self learned in the appropriate time.
Absolutely. You're here right now. So that's it. So again, that's a result of great success right there.
Yeah. This was such a pleasure, Brad. I really appreciate you sharing your story and lessons with me today. Thank you.
Likewise, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you to all who are watching. Have a great day.